Ooh. This is a story on how I spent $3,000 on film. Yeah, I did that. So for the month of October, I was on parental leave. My wife and I had our second child. We had a boy, and that was great. I was able to take off work, focus on the family, focus on just being a dad. And during that time, though, I got very curious again. And as a creator, that's what we do. We get curious about things that will help us just like on a personal level and a career. That curiosity led back to photography, and specifically film photography. Yeah, I went down the rabbit hole. Like, I'm in it. I'm way in there.
I'm in there. I'm in there. All right.
And really the catalyst of me being curious again in film photography was that last video I made about my first time shooting 35mm film on a point and shoot. And I loved every bit of that process. And so that's why I looked and turned my eye again towards film, and look where we are. I'm making another video about it. Okay, so let's talk about the why. Why in 2021 would I buy film cameras that are older than me? They're 30, 40 years plus, and where would I find the time and all this other stuff? Well, to be honest, I guess a slight misconception about me on social media is that I'm always buying a new camera or getting a new camera. Granted, it's part of my job. I get to review tons of stuff, but my personal cameras, my Z Cam is going on 3 years old, which is like 30 years in the video world, and my Blackmagic Pocket 6K Pro, that's going to be dated in just a few months. But I take a slow time of getting new gear and stuff like that, so I'm not really worried about the newest thing out there. And all that being said, the easy answer for me to say that I'm getting into film is the way it looks, the way you have so much flexibility, overexposure, to push and pull, and the highlights. Yeah, that's all great. But for me, during this time in my life and where my career is and being a dad and stuff, I actually related to that particular path. Meaning, okay, follow me. We just had our second kid. It's familiar territory because we already have one kid, but it's a very different experience now because it's a whole different child and a whole different person, right? And I kind of view it that way with film. It's film photography and actually film motion picture, and I'll explain that later too. It's familiar enough where, because it is my day-to-day job, I do things tech related, video related, photography related, but film is different because of the process and the things you have to consider and the limitations there is. And am I going to do processing on my own? Am I going to send it to a lab? All these things that take into account, which fits right now in my life with being a dad to a second child. Okay, it makes sense to me, but just run with it. I loved, for this past month, fully diving into film photography and motion picture film, as well as being a new dad to my second child. And those parallels are super strong for me, and it just makes sense for me to do. And that's kind of like the next phase I'm kind of moving into. And when I do something like this, when I pick up a new hobby or a new habit, I'm fully into it. So that's the why. That's my why. Now let's talk about the how.
What it do, what it does, where you been, where you was, what it ain't, what it is. Face in the mud, I really be hating the mud. Said I can't pick it up, but I did. Y'all know Goon put too much bass in the sub. Cup full of blood and I gave it a chug. Wait till your neighbors get all snug, then play this real loud where you live.
How did it get to spending this much money in a month? Well, my wife wasn't too happy about that, but I had reasons. I sell a lot of gear. Gear comes in and out of my space pretty often, so I had a way to pay for it. But before I jump to all the gear stuff, I do want to say I am not the best example to look at when if you're someone who wants to get into film. I have a very expensive taste, and there's a reason being. You don't have to spend a lot of money to get into film, obviously not. Film photography, the camera itself is just a black box that you load film. The film is actually more important than the camera itself. Of course, there are some quirks with whatever camera you buy, and there's different price tags, but you don't have to go super expensive like I did. Now, I would say I didn't go highly expensive. I didn't get a Leica, I didn't get a Hasselblad, anything like that. In terms of what I was looking for, me knowing that I'm going to buy a very old camera, I wanted to get it into best condition possible. So I was okay with spending money for premium in that regard. So that being said, so yeah, what did I buy? So I've always wanted to get into medium format photography. So I picked up myself a 6x4x5 Zenza Bronica ETRS. I had the ETRS, the original one, and the ETRS I. That's a much later model that they came out with. I sold the original one to pick up this one because I wanted the light meter that came built in, and that helps a ton when just going out and running around and shooting. And that cost me $900 because I got it in a pack. It was in excellent mint condition. And reading through all the stuff, scouring over eBay, making sure I can trust this seller, because it is hit and miss buying older cameras from sellers you don't know, especially all the way from Japan. So did a lot of research, and I just kind of went with my gut for the most part, and a lot of these purchases from my gut after I did all the research. So yeah, the next purchase I bought was the Canon F1. This thing is a super tank, and I wanted to have at least a medium format camera and a 35mm camera on me, so I can switch back and forth because I like using both mediums. That being said, this camera was about $350 on eBay when I purchased it. So when I was earlier talking about motion picture, I purchased a Super 16 film camera, and I was highly influenced by a couple people. One of them being Niles. He shot his Super 16. I'm like, screw it, I'm gonna just pick myself up one too. And there was two options really, the Bolex and the Krasnarok, I think that's what it's called, but I would call it the K3 Super 16. I'm just call it that, and that's what I picked up. I actually used that camera with some Kodak Vision 3 film on our recent campaign. Hopefully that'll look okay. It was pretty rough, and I just hope my exposure was good, but that will come later. I don't have any footage now, but that will come later. But bought that from Russia, and that costs another $550 or so. And after spending all this money and stuff, I knew my wife really wanted to get a Mamiya RB67 Pro, and I was like, let me just splurge on her a little bit. So I bought her one too. So that was another $600. So that's all the hardware in terms of cameras that I purchased. That's roughly like around what, $2,000. I don't know what the math was. Yeah, about a little over $2,000 right there, just right off the bat. And I had no regrets. I'm loving every single bit of it. Wow, I am rambling, but this is actually really good. I need some juice. Now, after taking my images, my film rolls to my lab and stuff, after a while, I started to try to build up some of the courage for me to actually do my own scanning and just ask for the negatives. Big shout out to the GOAT, Kyle McDougall, I think that's his name. Anyway, film photographer on YouTube. Highly recommend watching his stuff. But also, I watched a lot of our own lessons that we have on film photography, and it was just really just encouraging for me to just get inspired and just kind of just roll out and be confident in what I'm trying to do. So that being said, I picked up a scanner, and I was again researching which would be the best scanner for what I want to do, and I want to really break the bank. I spent quite a bit of money at this point, so I picked up the Epson 600V or V600, and that's around $250 there. And I think it looks great. And funny enough, I did a A and B comparison to my local lab versus my scan. I just wanted to see what the real difference is, because to be honest, I really wasn't too happy of how my images are coming back. And that's funny. One of the funny things about shooting film is you can't have that instant gratification and make adjustments. You really have to trust. I said this in my last video, but you have to really trust your vision and your knowledge of how to expose and where you want to expose. Sorry, that juice got me burping. And so as I was getting my scans back, I'm like, man, these look super, like, kind of weird. Like, I don't know, am I doing the right thing? Is this for me? And like all the doubts started coming in. I got my own scan, and then I just took the negatives that I get from my lab. My scans were looking a lot cleaner, especially in the shadows. I was like, whoa, that is super, super clean. So I was hooked. I started doing my own scans. So I got that. I got Negative Lab Pro, that plugin for Lightroom, which is another $100. So I bought a light meter. That's like the Psychonic light meter. It's in our shop too. Grab that, another $230. Now, the most important aspect of film photography is the film. What film did I get? What film did I use? All that jazz. I got quite a bit. Of course, I went down the traditional route, what everybody was recommending. So Kodak Portra 400, 160, 800. I like 800 a lot. I like Ektar a lot, actually. It's probably one of my favorite ones too. So I was just kind of all over the place. I got some film from our shop. I got some film from all over different options. I want to see what unique options are out there. And speaking of unique, I got into getting just kind of collecting expired film, because you can get a lot for cheap. And so very interesting to see that. I got this super, super rare, I think it's rare, Ektar 1000. This was, the set I have is from 1993 and 1995. Crazy, right? So I have a project in mind of what I want to shoot with that. I've gotten into motion picture film just because I know portrait is very popular, but I don't know, I like going against the grain, so I want to find something that fits the look that I want to create. So the last bit of stuff I purchased for me to be a little bit more control, I can control more in the process, is that I'm developing now at home. And I developed my first roll of 120 Tri-X black and white for 100 here. And before I dive into that, that was an experience. But I got the Patterson kit, the Ilford Patterson kit. And that has all you really need for one roll, I believe one roll of 120 or 35 mil. And that was really cool. I watched my homeboy, I don't know him though, but my homeboy Sean Tucker, I call him the photographer preacher, because he is so wise, and I just love the way he has these long form videos and conversation he has about photography and just his theory. But I watched this process on how he developed film, and I just followed that to the T. So as I did that, some of the things I purchased was like a red safe light. I really thought that the red light would be safe for taking out the film and loading it into your Patterson canister. No, that's not true. That was me. That's my mistake. And so what you see here is the effect of what the red light did to my film as I was unloading it and loading it into the canister. Just for that brief amount of time, me doing that, it totally destroyed the images, but I was able to recover some stuff. And it's a happy accident because I kind of like it. It has this cyanotype vibe. Happy mistakes are certainly welcome in the film process for me, and I think that's the beautiful thing about it. It's chemicals, it's science, right? And so it's just so much fun right now that I'm having. I am going to be way more conscious of how much money I'm spending moving forward, but I put myself a little budget each month or every 2 weeks where I just buy a little bit of film and just start collecting, because film is going up. And as we all know, Portra 400 is going to go up 20 or 30% next year. So that's not my go-to film. But again, having options and having different looks is something I'm embracing. So after all this, what did I learn? What am I learning as I'm shooting more film? So as a filmmaker and as a content creator in general, shooting film now has allowed me to be a little bit more conscious and methodical and intentional. But that's what it's doing for me. When it comes to motion picture film, man, understanding how to light. I know how to light already, but like metering and then knowing what your speed is and how does that play an effect, like all the mechanical stuff, mechanical details that is needed just to have in the back of your mind as a filmmaker is so useful, because digital cameras now, a lot of it's kind of already done for you. It's getting to the point where AI is going to be already built into these cameras, and I don't like that idea as much. It's great for some things, but not for everything. So me going backwards 50, 60 years, getting an older camera where I have to be the driving, thinking force behind it is very rewarding for me. And I try to, again, continue to apply that to what I'm doing with digital too, because it's not just film that I need to do that with. I need to do that with digital. So overall, it's making me a much better visual artist and storyteller, because these tools are just tools, but now I can use that in, wow, what am I trying to say here? I'm trying to be all deep for no reason. The core thing has to be the story, and then the tools will follow suit. That's what I wanted to say. Yeah. All right, guys, I'm done rambling. I got to go edit this now. I hope you enjoyed this. I surely did. Make sure to like and subscribe. We're almost at 500,000 subs. Let us know in the comments below, what should we do to celebrate that? it'll be super exciting once we hit that number. So make sure to share this video, like, subscribe, do all the things. All right, I'm out. I'm gonna finish drinking my juice. Bye.